I want to start off with the question around the Secretary General, the murmurs that he is going to hold a media briefing. Do you know anything about it? If so, do you think it is advisable that he briefs the media about what he said last night, that I'm not suspended, and if anyone actually is suspended, it's the president?
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Secretary General. I think he can speak for himself, and hopefully he will speak for himself this afternoon when he addresses the media. I think that it is important and crucial that the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Ace Magashule, brings the public into his confidence about the reasons behind his actions, so that people do not speculate. They get it from the horse's mouth, and he can explain frontally, clearly, without fear or favor, to the nation what is obtaining in the African National Congress today.
But do you think that his actions overnight, specifically the letter that has been issued under the SGO, that's the Secretary General's office, that the president has been suspended, and then on top of that he actually confirms it to some media to say, I have appealed, therefore I remain the Secretary General of the ANC. If anyone is on suspension, that's the president. What do you make of his actions?
Well, in the first instance, as it has been reported to the media, the Secretary General received a letter of suspension from the DSG yesterday. And his response to that letter was that that letter of suspension has no authority in it, and that the DSG had no authority to issue such a letter.
Do you go along with that?
Well, I myself, as a member of the NEC, as a member of the National Working Committee, when I heard about the letter, I was a bit taken aback because, firstly, in the last NWC, there was never a discussion as to who should be issuing letters of suspension. That thing never arose.
But can I interrupt you for a second? Was it not made clear that it would be the secretaries of provinces that are going to operationalize this issue? So, if there is a member who has not stepped aside, 30 days is up, letters of suspension are now going to be dispatched. At national level, it only makes sense that the person, given that the Secretary General is an affected party here, his deputy be the one that operationalizes that. Why is this abnormal?
Well, it's abnormal in the sense that the Secretary General of the African National Congress is that official that communicates with members and structures of the organization. And it's written black and white in our constitution, very clearly. There's no ambiguity about it. And therefore, he believes that that responsibility resides with him.
Should he be incapacitated, or in this instance be faced with challenges such as the one that confronts him in the courts? Surely there is a clause in the ANC constitution that says the next official should assume that position. Doesn't the ANC provide for that?
In my book, I think there's nothing automatic in that regard. I think that it is the National Executive Committee of the ANC that must confirm that the SG has been suspended in the first place, and secondly, that the DSG then will be acting in that capacity. I remember a precedent many years ago when Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa was the SG and had to leave that position in the middle of his term. And his deputy was Cheryl Carolus, if I remember well. And Cheryl Carolus could not automatically step into the shoes of Cyril Ramaphosa. The NEC had to convene and confirm that she would, from now on, become the acting Secretary General. So in this instance, I believe that it's correct that the NEC of the ANC takes that discussion and concludes that discussion.
Mr. Yengeni, the ANC NEC made this resolution in its meeting of months ago. The NWC, which is the structure that you say, said nothing about letters being issued. That NWC meeting was on Monday. Is it not true that the NWC, the National Working Committee, operationalizes or implements decisions of the NEC? So what is abnormal about what has happened in this instance?
Well, you know, for the longest time, and probably the reason why the ANC has existed for 100 years and more, it is because leaders of the ANC or leadership collectives of the ANC have historically come to decisions, sometimes of very difficult nature, on the basis of consensus, where members sit around the table, discuss and debate, and until a consensus is found. That consensus represents the collective opinions of the membership or of that discussion. It has never been that one view is rammed down the throats of others. And I think that the basis of this tension is precisely that even though some of us would have views that we express in meetings, those views would be discounted, and only one view will be communicated as a view of the NWC or the NEC. And,
but doesn't the ANC lead by consensus? When you say rammed down, this resolution has been rammed down, is that a fair characterization of the situation when a 30-day grace period was given, and the president was actually specific in the case of the Secretary General that this is an opportunity for him to go and consult former leaders of the movement, which is what he did. But the understanding is that he simply was intransigent. Why should the ANC tiptoe around an official? Yes, he may be a very important one at that, but the fact of the matter is that he is before the courts and he has serious charges against him.
Well, you know, Xoli, let me say this, and I've said this before, that fundamentally, none of us are opposed to discipline and disciplinary measures. Okay. We've been in the NEC, some of us, for some time, and in the ANC general for some time. So we understand the notion of discipline in our organization. we accept it and we support it. But where we realize that certain disciplinary steps are being taken to target certain members and certain leaders, we object to that. And speaking for myself, I have objected strenuously to the manner in which this matter has been handled in our organization. I feel and I believe that at this point in time, certain comrades, including the SG, are being targeted because certain people don't agree with their views. I'll give you a small example. When the Treasurer General was tasked with the task of reporting to us about the guidelines that must guide all members and all leaders, in that same meeting, when we're trying to make sense of these guidelines, asking questions of clarity, and trying to understand what's going on, certain comrades there and there were saying, why this? Why are we delaying? The SG must go now in this meeting. And some of us were like, but comrades, these guidelines are supposed to be guidelines for all members, for all leaders. Why this notion of the SG becoming frontal, even when we've not even started discussing the guidelines? So you could see that certain comrades in the leadership of the ANC were targeting certain comrades, especially the SG. And therefore, discipline that has eyes, we are not going to allow, and we will never accept it in the African National Congress.
Discipline that has eyes. I'm going to go back to that very statement, but I'm going to do that in a moment because there's an individual who has taken that step, and I wonder if they of the same view that this is discipline that has eyes. We continue the conversation with the ANC NEC member, Tony Yengeni, in a moment. Very good morning to you. If you're just joining us, we are in conversation with the ANC NEC member, Tony Yengeni, and this all has to do with what has thrown the ANC in turmoil, the Step Aside issue. Just moments ago, Mr. Yengeni, you said, this is discipline with eyes. I don't hear Mike Mabuyakulu saying this is discipline with eyes. He has seen it fit to comply with the decision-making structure of the ANC, the highest at that, in between conferences. That's the NEC. So what should be special about the Secretary General?
Well, Comrade Mabuyakulu has got the right to decide in the manner in which he chooses.
And Ace Magashule should throw the governing party in turmoil.
And Ace Magashule has got the right to choose the path he chooses to take. And in this instance, he has chosen that path. And every member has got the right to decide whether to go in a certain direction or not. In this instance, he has chosen in the manner in which he has. The biggest problem with this Step Aside issue is that it has become, and it has been made to be, not to be voluntary. Certain structures or certain people must suspend you, and so on and so forth. And then if you take that to court, and you say, there's never been a process internally that sought to determine my guilt or not. I was just suspended on the basis of rumors and gossip.
You know, Mr. Yengeni, the South African public, I get a sense that perhaps listening to you and me right now, they probably getting bored because here is the reality. And that is that the ANC is a voluntary organization. Ace Magashule is taking a particular decision, and some people may view him as a person who is doing things out of self-interest. it's not to the benefit of the party, because the image of the party is being dragged through the mud if he refuses to comply with the decisions that have been taken. Here's what I want to come to. Why should the ANC, a voluntary organization, allow itself to be dragged through the mud? And this is no small organization. It leads South Africa. Naledi Pandor was being interviewed by an international media organization where she is emphatic that those who have been engaged in corruption, it is her hope, and perhaps the hope of the party, because I guess that is the view she was expressing there in the ANC, that those who have wronged South Africans, those who have stolen from South Africans, must sit in jail.
We all agree that those that engage in corruption must be punished and the law must take its course. But our constitution protects South Africans from arbitrary measures against them. Our constitution asserts that every citizen is innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. So there is no lynch mob that will be allowed to lynch anyone, whether at the workplace or in a political organization or anywhere else for that matter. The Bill of Rights that we fought for, and many people lost their lives, protects the rights of individuals. Ace Magashule is not above the law. That's why he goes to court when he's asked to go to court. But his rights must be protected by as they are protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And if he feels, for whatever reason, that his rights are being abused, he has the right as a citizen, whether as ANC member or not, to object to the manner in which he's being dealt with.
Can I ask you a completely separate question? What do you think his intentions were by announcing to the public that he has suspended the membership of the ANC president?
I think, to be fair, you must ask that question from him.
But you're a senior member of the party. This could have serious implications for the country.
Yes, I'm a senior member of the party, but to be fair, mine would be speculating if I answer that question. And
was it wrong? Can I put it that way?
Well, my answer would be that, you see, my opinion on the wrongness or correctness of that decision is neither here nor there. The National Executive Committee of the ANC has to pronounce itself on this matter. But some of us, including myself, have raised this issue repeatedly in the ANC, that I want to know who gave whom money, how much was given, how much was used, what was it used for?
But you're aware of how much was given, 300 million.
There's no confirmation. It's all speculation.
It's from the horse's mouth.
Those bank statements are sealed by a court of law.
It's from the president's mouth.
Yes, but we want a full explanation with evidence, not just words, but real evidence that there was no wrongdoing in this instance. And therefore, the Secretary General in his letter states that he's suspending the president on the basis that he did not give adequate explanation about the buying of conference. Okay? And he is acting in his capacity as Secretary General of the ANC, because even though he got a letter of suspension from the DSG, in his view, he remains the Secretary General of the ANC, and he is acting accordingly.
You know, Mr. Yengeni, the ANC will always tell us that it does things as a collective. But the bottom line is that that organization is led by individuals, that's human beings, who have who have feelings, who have brains, who think in a particular way. Looking at how things hold right now, there is a framing of how things are unfolding. It's Ace Magashule versus Cyril Ramaphosa. Do you think that that relationship has broken down irretrievably, or it could still be fixed?
You know, Xoli, people say those things, you know. They even go further to say that it's not just Ace Magashule and Cyril Ramaphosa, but there are factions in the ANC, you know. There's a Tumamina faction, and then there's the RGT faction, and so on and so forth. I mean, we're given this diet on a daily basis. And to some degree, I think there is an element of factionalism in ANC politics at this point in time. But that element hides the real issue at stake here.
What is real?
The real issue in my book is that the vast members of black and African people remain with nothing. Poor, jobless, hungry, sick, you see. And the economy of these countries, those that are wealthy, remain predominantly white and male. That is the fundamental contradiction that faces South Africa today, this historical economic injustice. And if you look at NASREC sought to deal with this question by passing certain resolutions. Okay? Mm-hmm. The land expropriation resolution, RET, Radical Economic Transformation, free education, nationalization of the Reserve Bank, very strategic resolutions that if they are implemented, they will change the structure of the South African economy.
Who's standing in the way of...
Now come to the ANC. Mm-hmm. We are beyond our mid-term life as this National Executive Committee. Which of the above have been implemented? None. Okay? Why? Mm-hmm. Because the attack on RET appears to be an attack on certain, you know, naughty individuals like Carling House and others. I think that that's a scapegoat. I think the real issue is that the people in the ANC who fundamentally disagree and are opposed to that resolution of conference. They contested it in NASREC, they lost. But they didn't stop contesting it, they're still contesting it today. That is the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter is ideological differences in the ANC today.
Because the likes of Ace Magashule want those resolutions implemented in order to better the lives of people. Is that what you're going to tell us?
That's what I'm saying is the crux of the matter. It's not about Ace. Those resolutions were passed by a conference of branches who said, going forward, we want radical economic transformation to be effected in South Africa. We want land to be distributed to blacks and Africans in particular. And that must happen, and that will happen eventually, whether those who are fighting those resolutions like it or not.
We're going to continue after the break, Mr. Yengeni, but I want to put it to you that conversation is neither here nor there, because perhaps the people of South Africa must see the ANC for what it truly is, at least the people who are leading it, because Ace Magashule is in the trouble that he is in today because of a particular tender that was supposed to pull out the roofs that were poisonous for people's lives. And it never happened. Instead, money was looted. But let's take a break, because I suspect you have a comeback. We're going to continue with this conversation in a moment. Very good morning to you once again. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to ANC NEC member Tony Yengeni, and just before the break, Mr. Yengeni, I've made the statement that those who are rallying around the radical economic transformation resolutions, which by the way, I think is the entire ANC, or should be the entire ANC NEC, because these are resolutions of the party. Ace Magashule cannot possibly be a representation of that. Former President Jacob Zuma cannot possibly be a representation of that, because the question will be, what did they do in the near decade that they were in office? Ace Magashule has been Premier of the Free State for the longest time. Look at the state of municipalities there. 90% of them completely dysfunctional. You have the floor.
That's exactly the problem. The problem is condemning people on the basis of allegations, taking them out of positions on the basis of untested allegations. The Constitution says something different. It says every South African is innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. Mm-hmm. Comrade Jacob Zuma is innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. Same as Comrade Ace Magashule. Same as everybody else in South Africa. Mm. So it cannot be that on the basis of allegations you start moving against certain people. The only conclusion that one reaches is that actually what is happening in the ANC today is a purge, is a political purge of people who you don't agree with.
That's a very strong statement, and I'm interrupting you deliberately, because if you're going to say that to us here right now, that there is an attempt to remove some by others, who wants to get rid of who in the ANC right now, and what might result of it?
You see, in the ANC historically, and I'm fortunate and honored that I've been in those NEC collectives since the presidency of Comrade Nelson Mandela, so I have a sense of the processes in the ANC and how decisions are taken. Mm-hmm. Historically, the NEC would convene and debate issues, and there'd be differences. Okay? But it eventually would reach a common point where we say, how do we accommodate each other and come to a certain central conclusion? Mm-hmm. That represents the broad views of the membership of the National Executive Committee. That's how the ANC has operated historically. It has never been mm-hmm. that one view is rammed down the throats of people, and then we're told you either take it or leave it. The ANC is a voluntary organization. If you don't like it, leave. That's alien in the ANC.
So let's call it then. Is a split afoot in the party right now, as you see things?
Well, the split is something that will happen if, as leaders, we're not careful and sensitive. The reason why the Mandelas and the Sisulus and the Tambos would ensure that they seek the opinions of others and try and weld them into the ultimate decision is precisely because they understood that that would be uniting the organization and that would be uniting the people of South Africa against apartheid.
Is there evidence, Mr. Yengeni, and I'm reminded of this because you're talking about some who are pursuing others. Ace Magashule said last night that state resources are being used to pursue not just him politically, but to pursue people like Lindiwe Sisulu, Suprama Mapelo. and others. Are you aware of such, and is there credible evidence that he can base this on? I mean, he's the Secretary General of the ANC. Why would he make such claims?
Well, again, I think you should ask him that question. But be that as it may, it's a concern not only of Ace Magashule, it's my concern too, and concern of many others. But it appears that, to be precise, the NPA prosecutes certain people of a certain political mind. Okay? But certain people of the other political mind, even though there'll be tons and tons and tons of accusations and allegations against them of corruption and theft, they are not being prosecuted. And if you are a South African, you are in the political space, you don't have to be a politician, actually, to see that even state organs are taking sides in the political battles in the ANC. And the NPA is such an organ. Its prosecution has eyes. It targets certain comrades of a certain political mind. And that to me is evidence enough that state organs are not innocent in this regard. And that is concerning.
Why would Shamila Batoy, Mr. Yengeni, with all due respect, we've been down this road before as a country, and we know what resulted of the NP. So why would Shamila Batoy allow for such a thing to happen?
Ask her that question. I'm sure she'll be prepared to ask you. I don't want to speculate as to what reasons are behind it. But, Xoli, besides the NPA, I, as chairperson of Peace and Stability, an NEC subcommittee that deals with security matters, security policies, have had comrades writing letters to me, complaining that their phones are being listened to.
And you have proof of that now? Is there veracity? Is there credible evidence brought to you?
And that some of them are even being followed, you see, wherever they go to. And I've raised this thing with the organization, and I've sent those letters to the SG's office. State organs should stay away from politics. They must do their job without selectivity. They must do their job without fear or favor. This notion that there must be those that they target, those they don't target, must stop. And we're not going to allow it. We'll always expose it. Mm-hmm. We'll always condemn it.
But go to the police station.
1,000 people have gone to police stations every week, every day actually. People open cases. People do. And they've done it before. And they'll always do it again.
We're wrapping this conversation, Mr. Yengeni. I'd like to ask of you, do you think the president of the ANC is leading this party in a manner that is going to boost the confidence of the people of South Africa in the ANC as a party in government? Do you think South Africans are going to, or are increasingly gaining confidence in him, or should increasingly gain confidence in him, or they should be worried that things are going south very quickly?
You know, my answer to that question would be that for the longest time we're fed with the diet that Zuma's years in presidency were 9 wasted years. Okay. Where are we today compared to that time? in terms of economic development, in terms of job creation, in terms of delivering services to our people. Okay. Load shedding has become a permanent feature of our lives. More and more people are standing on robots, begging for food. Black people, in particular. The answer to that question will be determined by how far have we gone today under the leadership of Comrade Ramaphosa in dealing with those questions.
I think you've summed it up, Mr. Yengeni. Time has run out, but I've got to quickly find out from you. Do you know the venue of the press conference that Magashule
No, I don't.
will...
I don't know the venue.
Nor the time?
No, I don't know the time.
I must thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Xoli.
Truly appreciate it.
Same here.
Thank you. Tony Yengeni, ANC NEC member. Coming up.